Hi, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Circle Up and Get Real, where we talk about things that matter with people who matter. And I don't know if you have heard of my friend Jodie yet, you who are on this Circle Up and Get Real platform, but Jodie and I have known each other for a long, 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 long time.
Long, long time.
And you were on a previous version of my podcast at some point. So I'm going to make an assumption that you don't know Jodie Harvala at this point. And if you do, you're going to love the conversation anyway.
Yeah.
So, Jody, I feel like I just want to say what I know about you. You've had interesting careers in radio and, just a lot of different things. But Jody's a from a spiritual skeptic to a mystical mentor.
Hmm.
So, I don't know, a psychic medium, all these things that feel a little bit goofy till you jump in and go, oh, this is
Yeah.
not goofy at all.
Yep.
So I would love you to just tell us about you, Jody, and we're gonna go back and figure you out here.
Yeah. Which is super fun. It's always
Uh,
fun. Yeah,
so
I'm a psychic medium. How if people ask me what I do now, I'm a psychic medium, spiritual teacher. I do space clearing. I work in the woo-woo side of things.
yeah.
I do energy clearings. I do all sorts of magical fun stuff. And I do think it's magic. And I came from sales. I came from recruiting. I came from radio sales. I used to sell bathroom ads. When you pee, think of me was my tagline.
I love it.
Still love that. And so I've had a lot of different careers and I've had a lot of jobs before I made it to this one. Like
Mhm.
I never knew what the hell I was going to do. And to come into this, you were actually a big piece of that because I had Foster, my
Yeah.
oldest, and kind of lost my friends. Like they all had baby girls. I had baby boy, and it was like I wasn't invited anymore. It was very
Mhm.
weird. It was so strange. That's how it felt. I don't know if
Yeah.
that's really how it was, but it's how it felt. And I was like, I need some friends. And you were starting a book club on the Course of Miracles.
Yeah.
And I remember specifically going to pick up that book and reading it and going, wow, this is a cult. And that's exactly what I said to myself. And I put it on my dining room table. And I wanted to see what Eli thought without me saying anything. He picked it up and he kind of read it for a while. And I was kind of watching him. And he's like, hey, you know what? If they give you Kool-Aid, you should not drink it. And I started laughing. I'm like, I know, maybe I shouldn't go. And he's like, nope, you should go. Like he's really intuitive as well. And he goes, nope, you're supposed to go to this. I don't know why, but go. He goes, just, don't get brainwashed. And I still don't think I understand that book. But what I loved about that group was the miracles because
Mm.
we got into this habit is we would do a reading about the book and all that stuff that I never understood. And we would at the end we would share all our miracles that we saw in the week before.
Mhm.
That's what I was in that group for.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
then I met other psychic mediums and started taking classes and that's kind of how I got into it because I didn't know I was a psychic. I didn't grow up seeing stuff. I knew people in high school when they would pair up and be boyfriend girlfriends. I'm like, nah, they're not going to last. Nah, they don't match. And I always knew when people were lying to me. Like I always knew that,
Mhm.
but I didn't know any of the spiritual stuff. I always loved it. Always was very open to it, but I didn't know I could do it.
Yeah.
So I really tell people that I'm more of a developed psychic
Mm.
versus a childhood that like
Mhm.
they grew up seeing ghosts and blah blah blah. Like I didn't have that piece,
Mhm.
at least not that I was aware of.
Yeah. So I think before A Course in Miracles, though, we met,
At
I think.
WBE.
Yeah, was it? Oh my
It was
God.
WBE because both of us kept being told, you got to meet Jody, you got to meet Jody, you
Oh,
got to meet Jody. And I
funny.
was like, hey, I'm supposed to meet you. And then
That's
we went
right.
out
And it
for
was
coffee.
Rika.
Rika. Yes, yes, yes,
Oh,
yes.
so WB was Women's Business Exchange, which I was a networking group
Loved.
that I co-founded with a couple people. And yeah, oh, that was a
Yeah.
long time ago, Jodes,
That was a
man.
long time ago. Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, when we knew people in common, and when Rika said you need to meet somebody, you knew you needed to meet somebody,
Yep.
right?
And we both heard it. I even think
Hmm.
Karen Skoll told us we needed to meet each
Oh,
other.
sure,
I
sure.
think we heard it from a few different
Mhm.
people.
So I want to just stop there for a second. There's a lot of power in networking,
Hmm.
not in the business necessarily, the business sense of networking, but the trust that's developed when like-minded and like-hearted people are put in touch with each other, I think.
Yeah. Yep. If I hear someone's name 3 times,
Mm.
I'm like, I'll hear it and I'll be like, yeah, okay. And I'll hear it again and I'll be like, And then if one more person says it, then I'm like, all right, I'm going to reach out.
Yeah.
And I've had that happen to me too, where they're like, all right, I keep hearing your name. I don't know who you are, but we're supposed to talk.
Yeah.
So I've always kind of followed that rule of 3 when I'm supposed to meet somebody. And it
Well,
always pays off.
yeah. Well, when we first started sort of coaching or meeting, you were in a different space because this was before you recognized your, I'm going to call it gifts,
Sure.
you know, your talents, your gifts. You were frustrated when we first
Oh my
met.
God. Yeah, I really didn't like life at all. It was
Mhm.
awful. It was hard being a mom. I didn't know how to do that. Eli worked all the time at that time. He did all nights and weekends, which I would work during the day. So we never saw each other. It Friendships went away. Like it was really awful. It was
And then you were
awful.
pregnant with your second when you were sick.
Oh my God, I was so sick. I was so sick. I remember I almost puked at that one. We were at like a chamber of commerce or something. I don't know, something Karen invited me to. And I remember looking and I was like, I gotta go right now. And I peed on myself at Grazzi's. I went to the bathroom because I knew I was gonna throw up and I puked and I peed all over myself.
Oh,
And it was like lunchtime at Grazzi's, so it was full. And
oh,
I was like, how am I going to get out of here without all these
oh,
people seeing me? And it was like light colored pants, so there was no hiding it. And I
oh.
remember coming home and Foster was 4 and he goes, did you pee in your pants? And I'm like, I don't yell at you when you have
Right.
accidents. He's like, you get in the shower.
Oh my
And,
gosh.
and my mother-in-law was here. Eli's mom was alive at that time. And she's like, yeah, it happens to the best of us. And
That's
I was
funny.
like, no, this is terrible. Yeah, it was terrible pregnancy. It was awful.
So back then you were working through things. I think you were getting messages. You kept doing this behind your head thing and you kept
Yeah,
going.
I was just
We were
telling someone
talking.
about that today. That's
Yeah.
funny. I was just because I was talking to you and if it was positive, I was doing this, and then I was
Yeah.
talking about someone and they're crazy. And I was doing this, and you're like, what is this? And I was like,
Yeah.
I don't know what that is. I was just talking about that today in a group that I was teaching.
So
That's so
funny.
funny.
And you were, I think it feels now looking back that there was something there that you were
Mhm.
not listening to or you were not
I didn't know
present to.
how.
Right,
Yeah,
right,
didn't know how
right.
to listen to it at all.
And the frustration. Remember the laundry?
Yeah, that actually is one of my main stories that I tell people about. So the laundry story is great because we had this old house and I had this pile of laundry and it was about 5 feet tall and it did not matter if we stayed home all weekend and did laundry all weekend. It didn't matter if every single day I did laundry. It never went away. And I remember bitching about this laundry over to Jodie. I had another coach that I worked with at one point, and we had, I don't know, 3 calls about this stupid fucking laundry. Like I was so angry about this laundry. And then through long story, but this woman came over to clear my house.
Mhm.
And we started in the basement, and the first place she went was to that laundry. And I just looked at her and I was like, are you going to tell me what this damn laundry is about? And she's like, yeah, like you totally have like this negative vortex of energy and your intuition is telling you to cover it so it stays out of your house. And I
Wow.
remember I just bawled because I'm like, I knew there was something with that damn laundry. I just didn't know what it was. And she goes, yeah, it was your intuition covering something up energetically that doesn't feel good to you. And so you can't get rid of it until like we just had to do some energy work on it. And then the laundry was gone. It was
So
crazy.
how did you know to do that at the time? Do you remember?
No.
How does energy work come into somebody's awareness?
Well, for me, I think, I think spirit leads you to it.
Okay.
Like spirit led me to your book, to that book club.
Hmm.
Well, first it led me and you to each other, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
And then it led us into a friendship, and then it led us into a book club. And then remember in that book club, it was Shannon Troy and
Hmm.
Darcy Simonson.
Yeah.
And Darcy looked at me the first night and she said, oh, I recognize you. You're in my soul group. And I'm like, I don't know what that is, weird
Mm.
lady, but I kind of want to sit by you and I kind of want to put my head on your lap and just let you like pet me because she had was such a loving
Um,
energy. And then Troy and Shanda were opening up to their gifts and all that kind of stuff. And then they led me to Wes,
mm.
helped me learn how to meditate and move all my anger out, not all my
Mhm.
anger, but move a lot of my anger out. And he is the one that introduced me to more of my psychic abilities. And then I met for the clearing class to learn how to clear houses, which was such a big, I was like, oh, I know how to do this. Like I know how to, I remember
Mm.
telling Wes, I know how to do this. And he goes, yeah, you're remembering.
Wow.
And I was like, oh, well, I know I'm good at this. Like I
Oh.
know it was like the first time I'd ever been like, I absolutely don't need anyone in the world to tell me I'm good at this. Like I'm good at
Mhm.
this. And he's
Wow.
like, yep, and you're psychic. And I'm like, well, I don't know about that part, but I'm really good at this.
Yeah.
You know, because of course I had to fight a little bit. But
Right.
I think spirit takes you where you need to go, and it just kind of steers you. And you can
Mm.
sometimes take the long road around, sometimes it's the short road, sometimes it's a different path, but it always will take you where you need to go, in
So when
my
you,
experience.
yeah, when you say spirit like that, would you say another way to say that is intuition?
You could say God, you could say universe, you could say intuition, you could say your higher self, you could say your heart, you could
Mhm.
say, you know, there's a million Buddha, like there's a million different ways you could say it. I use spirit because to me that encompasses all of it.
Mhm. Mhm. So do you, and I would, I'm going to make an assumption that we all have it.
Yeah, everyone has intuition. And as you get older, intuition starts to get, you have lots of intuition with when you're a kid.
Mhm.
Lot of babies see stuff, lots of, you know, born to like 5 years old, a lot of kids see different things. Then they're taught not to because
Mhm.
it's weird and crazy and all the stuff. And then as you get older and you don't really care anymore what anyone thinks of you, you start to let your intuition come in again. And as you get older, a lot of elderly people start to see things again and they know things and they just don't care what anyone thinks anymore and their
Mhm.
filter goes away.
Mhm.
So I have a lot of clients in that like 45 plus age group because that's about when it starts to power up again.
Mm.
But everyone has it. Not
Mhm.
everyone develops it. Not everyone wants to pay attention to it.
Yeah. And I know from you and from Troy and Shanda, by the way, we're talking about friends that moved to Minneapolis, and we can give a shout out to them at some
Yeah, for
point too,
sure.
what they're doing in their work. That you can learn this and you can develop this as a strength if you
Yeah,
own
if
it,
you
right?
if you want to. And there's lots of ways, like some people have a gut feeling, like they might call it gut feeling. Some people they just know things and it's like, well, how do you know that? I don't know. I just know. You
Mhm.
know, and they just learn to trust this sense that comes in. And there's and some people hear things and some
Mm.
people say things and it just falls out of their mouth. Like that
Mhm.
happens to me. I'm like, oh, that just fell out.
Mhm.
It just came
Mhm.
out of my mouth.
Mhm.
But yeah, I do think everyone can learn it to a point, and then some people either keep allowing it to grow and expand, and some people just kind of stop it because they don't want to know anything else.
Mm. Well, so that gets back to what you were saying about 0 to 5 or whatever. You have a lot of it, and then what happens from 5? I mean, I know
Your
it sounds,
parents tell you, don't
yeah.
tell people that you are taught to conform.
Mm.
Really, you
Mm.
know, like they don't want you talking about ghosts in school with other kids, or they don't want you doing this or doing that, or telling people like, oh, grandpa died and I can see him.
Mm.
Like I remember I have like this was fascinating to me because I did not remember this, but when my dad, no, it's when who died? Somebody died, and I hooked up with my cousin and we were talking about something. I think it was a reunion, and we were talking about something and she goes, I specifically remember when grandma died. I remember bawling my head off at my grandma's funeral. I also remember the night she died, she came and sat on my bed. She was like my first experience. She sat on my
Mm.
bed and she said, hey, I have to go. I just wanted to come and say goodbye and I love you. And then all of a sudden I woke up and my dad was there and he was like, hey, I have some news to tell you. I'm like, oh, I know, grandma died. And I was like 10 or 11 or 12,
Mm.
somewhere around there. And he just looked at me and he just stood up and he walked out of the room because he didn't know what to say.
Yeah.
And later on, when I was talking to my cousin, I said, I remember just bawling. I just couldn't control myself at grandma's funeral. And she goes, don't you remember what you kept saying? You kept asking if she was dead because you could feel her. And
Wow.
I was like, what? And she goes, yeah, I specifically remember it because I went and asked my dad if you were going to be okay. And he was a psychiatrist. And he said, yeah, she's going to be more okay than most of us.
Wow.
And I had no memory of that piece. But
Mm.
I remember the crying because my mom had to she just had to take me out of there because I could not control
Mhm.
myself.
Mhm.
And I still have a hard time at funerals because I can feel everyone's grief. So it's just
Right.
hard to manage, especially as a kid. But
Mm.
I had never had that memory. And I was like, oh, interesting. I did not know. I did not know that. And she's
Mm.
like, yeah, so I do think And no one told me that. Like my mom said, oh, let's get her the hell out of
Sure.
here, instead of saying, hey, you know what? You feel her spirit. She
Mm.
is still here. Like they just don't know. You don't know
Mhm.
how to teach it if you're not into it.
Yeah. Well, and I don't know about you, but the way I was raised in a really strict Christian home, this was from the devil. I mean, I don't
Right.
know. What's your experience with that with your clients and with what you're learning about?
Yeah. So when I first started, so here's the thing, I grew up Lutheran, and I went to confirmation and would get in trouble because I would argue with the minister because he would tell us a story, and I remember this, and I was like, that's not true. And he's like, what do you mean that's not true? I'm like, it's not true. Like, that's not how it happened. And he's like, well, how would you know? And I'm like, well,
Yeah.
how would you know? And I was a pretty shy kid, especially in high school. Like I was quiet and shy, and I would argue at home, like in my house, but like to speak up like that out in the world was not me. I know I'm obnoxious now, but not then. And I would get in these fights with him because he's like, how would you know that? I'm like, because I know. Like I know that's not true. And God doesn't punish us. And I know this to be true. And he's like, well, how do you know? I'm like, because I know. And he kicked me out of confirmation. And which is hilarious to me. But when I first started, I remember there was a few girls around me that they grew up very much with like, this is the devil, this is wrong, blah, blah, blah. And they had a lot more people coming at them for it, for
Mm.
that kind of experience. And what I realized was I don't really have that belief, nor am I fighting that belief. So it doesn't show up very often.
Interesting.
When it does show up, like I had an experience, so last year, maybe 2 years ago, and I hadn't had an experience in a really long time for this, but this was really telling, is I had worked with this woman. I had cleared her house. I had done some sessions with her. She loved me. She loved the work. She loved the energy stuff. It made so much sense to her. And then she just kind of dropped off, which happens. And so I didn't really, it was like 4 years prior. And then all of a sudden I got a note from her husband. You are the devil. You're evil. You should be ashamed of yourself. I hope you die.
Wow.
And I was like, what the hell? Who is this person? And like, I didn't recognize the name or anything. So I looked up the last name and I was like, oh, that's so weird. Like, I haven't heard from that chick in like 4 years.
Mhm.
And I messaged her and I said, hey, I got this incredibly rude message from your husband and I don't appreciate it. And, you don't have to be on my, I don't know why he's emailing me now. We haven't talked for 4 years. And then I got another message from him the next day. I hope you die. You're evil, la, la, la. And I was like, all right, fuck you, dude. Because first of all, you used your work email to email me.
Oh no.
And I was like, you're so stupid. You're so stupid. So I
Yeah.
was like, listen, I don't care what you think about me and my work. Just don't participate. I don't know why you're emailing me at this moment, but you do one more email to me, and I blocked him and everything. But I said, you do
Mhm.
one more email to me, I'm walking into your office with this email to your partners and your boss. And I know most of your clients because I used to kind of work in that area.
Mm.
So you should be very mindful and not be so stupid and email someone death threats that you hope I die on your
Mm.
work email, you
Right.
dumbass. I was like, I was hot, I was livid. And then I sent the same email to his wife because I'm like, dude, I get off my email list. I like, so I made sure she was off all my stuff.
Right.
Very seldom do I get that. Now I've had some family members that felt that. And then after they passed, Susie Eckberg, who we both
Yeah.
know, she's the one that told me I'd be a psychic someday. She gave me
Mm.
a message from one of the relatives that passed, and she really had a belief that I was not great and evil and blah blah blah.
Yeah.
She wouldn't tell me to my face, but she told plenty of other
Wow.
people. And then she passed, and she's like, "Oh, this is how it works."
Oh, wow.
And I just laughed because I'm like, really? Really?
Mm.
Okay. So I've had some experiences. I try to remind people if you have a faith about something, I'm not getting in your way of that
Mhm.
because that faith and religion carries people through incredibly harsh, awful,
Mhm.
horrible experiences in life. Why would I be against that?
Right.
Like, I don't believe that we're going to hell. I don't believe we're sinners. I don't buy into any of that part of it,
Mhm.
but I love the faith. I love the community of it. Like on the Camino, it's a religious pilgrimage, and we end up at the cathedral, and I had the most awesome. It's a great story. I'll have to tell it at the
Yes.
cathedral, and that it was all faith. It had nothing to do with being Catholic or religious. And so for me, if people are stuck with that, actually one of the main books that I'll send people to is, Teresa Caputo, The Long Island
Yeah.
Medium.
Yep.
Her very first book, she talks so beautifully. She's got a chapter in there about how she's an active medium and an active Catholic, and
Oh.
how she tries to mesh the two and how she's made sense of it
Hmm.
between the two. So I think she spoke really well about religious and this work that we do. And honestly, if people think it's the devil or they think it's evil or whatever, they're not my clients. They're not going to contact me. So I don't really give it much attention.
Sure, sure.
And if someone wants to have an argument with me, I don't do that either. I'm
Right.
not here to convince people.
Mhm.
There are psychics and people that I know that have really tried to do that, and they really sit in a lot of pain with it because they just argue.
Yeah, yeah.
And I'm like,
So
why bother?
I want to get back to now, Jody, you're doing this full time. This is your business. This is your
Yeah,
life. This is your
yeah.
livelihood. So how did you make that transition from working in sales to doing
Um,
this full time? Because I remember the scary part where you and Eli were like, we got to make some money here. We
oh
have
my
to.
God, we were so broke. So Eli worked at a restaurant in town, Grandma's, which we still miss. And
Mhm.
he doesn't miss the restaurant
Mhm.
industry though. And we actually had started on the lawn. We had
Right.
started our lawn business, and at
You got to
this,
tell them what On the Lawn is.
so
So,
on the lawn was a business that, let's say it was Jody's 50th birthday, we would go in the middle of the night and put flamingos on our lawn, and we'd have a sign that say, Lordy, Lordy, Jody's 50. It was awesome. It was a great
mhm,
little
mhm.
company. We might bring it back. We'll see. And what I loved about that, it was so much freedom, because at the time Eli worked so much because he was the kitchen guy at Grandma's. And so it gave us a little bit of freedom, and I could be home with the kids after school and all the stuff. And at the same time, all of this was opening up. So I
Mhm.
was also doing meditation groups and that kind of stuff. And I was working some part-time jobs. I worked for Michael McAllister,
I
and
remember.
I worked for Jen DeMeo, pulling needles and doing Reiki on people at our acupuncture office. Um, and there was one day I was like, I can't do on or off on the lawn anymore. Like I didn't have the energy. I had to do one or the other. And it was like my spirits like, choose, which
Mm.
one do you want to do? And I was so drawn into the space clearing and the readings and all that. I was like, and I went out that morning and I took all the stickers off my car. And Eli came home and he was like, I was like, dude, you're not around to help. So
Mhm.
I'm done with it. I can't do it all. I can't be a mom and this and this and this. And I just decided, and it really was tough because after I decided that, they closed Grandma's.
Oh, yeah.
And then Eli had to find different jobs, and that was a whole thing. And he went through his own personal kind of shit. That's
Mhm.
his story to tell.
Mhm.
But it left our family broke, like broke. And I remember I would do meditation groups, and sometimes two people would show up, so I'd have 20 bucks for groceries. Sometimes seven people would show up, so I had $70 for groceries that week. Like it was that
Wow.
close.
Wow.
And it was so scary, and it was so hard, and it was so frustrating because I remember telling Eli, I know we're missing something. Like we are good people, we're hard workers, we're workers, like we both work really hard, we're kind, we try to do the right thing, we're trying to raise our kids well, like we're missing something. And that's when I found out about space clearing and clearing homes. And somehow I got this chick to come over and clear my house. And we owed, I still don't know how I paid her. I still have no idea how I paid her. And I'm sure the check bounced. And we needed like $672 for electricity, or it was going to be turned off. And I just freaked out. I remember I went to someone's house and had a drink with them, and I'm just crying, and I was just upset, and I was just pissed. And then I came home, and Eli had been doing handyman work in between jobs. And he goes, look at this check I just found. I just found this. I was going through stuff and I just found it. And it was a check for the exact same amount we needed.
Mhm.
And I was like, holy shit, this stuff works. Oh my
Mhm.
God. Oh my God. Like there's something with this. And then I started doing more space clearings and it very slowly but
Mhm.
surely built over the
Mhm.
years.
Mhm.
And I had to learn a lot about money because I was terrified of it. I didn't know how to manage it. We didn't grow up with money. Eli had his own lack beliefs. So then we have this couple, and my biggest fear was having the same troubles that my parents had, which of course I created exactly the same scenario. I remember one Thanksgiving, we were so broke. And I sometimes when you do a lot of energy work and energy growth and self-growth and stuff, like you short things out. Like our oven was broke. We had one burner on our stove, our microwave had died, our coffee maker died, our toaster was dead. I think our fridge still works. Our TV had broke, like
Wow.
everything had broke, and we were hosting. So I had to text everybody and I was like, listen, like our house kind of blew up. If you all could bring the food, we're happy to host. And they all felt so bad for us. They were like, we don't know what the two of you are doing. So they left us all the leftovers
Oh,
because,
wow.
we didn't have money to replace anything. I remember running something over to the neighbors to heat up in the oven because our oven died.
Mm.
Oh my God, it was so awful. And I
Mm.
remember there was one point where I was like, the only thing we have money for was the house payment, the car payment, and our cell phones.
Mhm.
That's all. That's all. The rest of it just had to just go where it needed to go. And it took us 5 years, to clean all that up and get all that straight. And it was awful. And
Mhm.
I had when I my tax lady and my account lady, she's amazing. But I cried in her office for a year every time I went in. She's like, you know, I don't know why you have to cry every time you come in here. And she goes, you're just learning something new.
Oh.
Nobody's ever taught you this. You've
Mhm.
never been taught how to do any of this. She goes, I don't know why you need to cry, but I felt so stupid.
Mhm.
But no one had ever taught me. I wasn't good with numbers. I wasn't good with math. I wasn't good with organization. Like I was so bad at all of it.
Yeah.
And she's like, I just don't know. Like, if you were learning how to walk, you're not
Mhm.
gonna, yell at a kid because they don't know how to walk. She goes,
Mhm.
why don't you just stop crying and let me teach you? And then
Wow.
Sunny taught me a lot, of course, about running the business side of it.
So Sunny, tell people who Sunny is.
So Sunny Dawn Johnston, she's my mentor. She's been my mentor for years. And honestly, Wes Hamilton and Lori Palmer really helped with the money piece too. I've had lots of money teachers along the way
Mhm.
because I didn't know that money was just energy. Like everything else that I work with, I look at the whole world as energy except money.
Mm.
Money was always a weight for
Mm.
me, and it was always heavy, and it was always hard. And I would still say it's a work in progress, but we're so much better off than we used to be. Could
Mm.
there be some better? Sure, of course, always, always.
Mhm.
But I'm not always worried anymore.
Yeah.
It's just different. I don't have to live day to day anymore or month to month. Like we're okay.
Right.
So there's been a lot of growth. There's still room for lots of growth, but I really came like when the day I started my business, we were negative in the
Mm.
bank.
Mm.
That's why I started doing those meditation groups.
Yeah.
And I was kind of forced into it because I was like, shit, I got to find a way to make groceries for the
Yeah.
kids.
Yeah.
And that was the easiest thing I could think about.
Mhm.
And so that's what I did for like a year. That's how we
Mhm.
got our grocery money.
So meditation groups, people would pay to come and be part of your, so it's teacher or hold space holder kind
Yeah.
of.
Yep. And I would guide them through a
Yep.
meditation,
Yep.
similar to like my full moon groups now, but back then it was in person here in Fargo,
Mhm.
with Darcy, not Darcy Simonson, the other Darcy
Newman.
Newman. It was with Darcy Newman when she had her yoga
Yep.
studio in Moorhead. And
Mhm.
thank God, because it was such a beautiful space,
Mhm.
so yeah, we've done a lot of growth around money.
Yeah. So running a business, making this a business is really fascinating to me because as you said, energy is simply energy. It's just,
Energy, yep.
yeah, it's like a tool, I suppose. If you can really get good at managing your money, you can get good at managing your energy.
Yep. Or
And
vice versa.
yeah, exactly. And probably in that order, maybe.
Uh-huh.
So I'm looking here at your website. By the way, if you want to go to Jodie's website, it's just jodieharvala.com, and I'll put this all in the show notes. But there's a space that says about you, about Jodie, from spiritual skeptic to mystical mentor.
Mm-hmm.
And you say on your website, I haven't always embraced my innate abilities. I always knew that I felt different, having a heightened sensitivity to the energy around me and the people I encountered. However, during my earlier years, I suppressed my intuition. I pursued a career in radio sales. We've already talked about executive recruitment, thinking that that was my path in life. But as it turns out, the universe had different plans for me.
Mm-hmm.
So you said it took a year, kind of doing some of these things that you had to do to get there. Would you say that you're in flow now as a business?
Um, I would say I'm in flow a lot more now than I'm out of flow. We'll put it that way.
Okay, okay.
Because I think as I grow and expand in my life, my business has to grow with me. And
Mm-hmm.
that's something that I saw a long time ago, where people's business would get to a certain point and they would just keep it there.
Mm-hmm.
And with Sunny, she just keeps growing, and in our industry, there's a lot of broke psychics.
Oh, yeah.
And that's a story that a lot of people carry. And I remember when I said yes to this, I remember specifically, I was like, all right, spirit, I'll say yes to this. Like all this weirdness, being the weird one in the room, talking to, like, I'll say yes to this fully, but I'm not going to be a broke psychic.
Mm.
And I need someone to show me the way that has integrity, that is truthful, that knows how to do the business side, that knows how to teach me how to do this. And 2 weeks later, I met Sunny.
Okay.
And so as her business keeps expanding, like I remember when her business was where my business is now. So I'm like, oh, I'm doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Yay. So I have someone that's a really great model for me. She does some stuff that I don't do for sure. And she's done it way longer.
Yeah.
But I keep growing my business because I have someone that mentors me. You gotta
Yeah.
have a mentor
Right.
in my world.
Yeah. I
So
think in every world, Joe, I think everybody,
I do too.
I really do.
I do
Yeah.
too. I think mentors are a big deal. And so she really helps me with the accountability if I'm out of my flow. Like we have some pretty big conversations about why.
Mm.
Like, is it a health thing? Is it a fear thing? Am I just growing too slow or too fast or whatever? So I would say I'm in flow now more than I ever have been. But I also know that this year is different because I don't know everything I'm going to do this year like I normally do.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So this is
I'm
where
kind of
you,
at a crossroads. It's kind of an interesting question today because I'm like, oh,
uh-huh.
like last year I would have said yes, but this year I'm like, oh, there's a few little things that I don't know.
That's awesome though, because I think this leads me to one of the reasons I wanted to talk to you now. You alluded to the Camino and we talked a little bit about that, but I would like to know if people don't know what this is, just kind of break it down to what is the Camino and then how did you decide to do this?
Yeah, so it's the Camino de Santiago and it's a pilgrimage walk. And a lot of people will take a month to 2 months to walk it. So it's hundreds of miles depending, and there's different paths all over Europe to go to it. And the part that we did, so we did a section of it, and we did the last section from Santiago or from Sarria to Santiago. And it's the last section you can do. And it's like, I think it's 111 kilometers to still be considered that you walk the Camino.
Mhm.
It's a lot and it was
Mhm.
hard.
Mhm.
And I heard about it with Wes and Lori about 20 years ago, and they gave me a Shirley MacLaine book about her journey on the Camino. And I read it and I was like, oh, I'm doing that. Like I knew I was going to do it. I knew it. I was like, yep, I'm doing that. I have no idea. And then last year I was in Stona and Sunny just happened to be there at the same time. So me and my friend Nikki went to visit her because Nikki had never met her. And we were going to go on a cruise to Alaska. And I wanted her to at least meet Sunny. And Sunny's like, hey, did I tell you I'm going to take a group to the Camino? And I was like, oh, I'm a hell yes on that. I'm going. Like, I'm absolutely going. Nikki's going too. She just doesn't know it, but I'm going. And Nikki's like, I don't even know what that is. What do you mean we have to walk 100 miles? Like, what are you talking about? I'm like, just say yes. You're just gonna go. And she did say yes, but I knew 20 years ago I was gonna go, and I had no idea why. And so we've been training, for a year and a half to go. And Fargo's flat. The Camino is not flat. So the hills were a lot for me. I knew physically it was going to be a challenge for me. It's kind of one of the reasons I wanted to go, because it forced me to really look at my health, because I had COVID a few years ago and it really messed with my body and took me a couple years to get my health back. So I wanted something to focus on. And I'm a skier, and like we didn't have any snow last winter. So like it was really an interesting year of training on how to get myself trained for this thing. It was so fucking cool and so much more than I ever expected it to be. It was just spectacular. It was just spectacular. And it's definitely not for everyone by any means. I really set an intention that I wanted it to be full of magic. And the first day we walked 15 miles and it was not magic. I was like, holy shit, this is hard. And there were so many hills, and oh my God, it was so hard. And I had such a headache when we were done. And I couldn't believe I walked 15 miles. Like it was so hard. And the next morning I was still, I wasn't emotional the night before. I think I was just too tired. But I knew something was coming up for me the second day because my left hip hurt. My left hip never gives me trouble. My right one does, but not my left one. And I was limping, and I was like, oh my God, like I have to walk 18 miles today. What in the hell? And I just felt the panic coming up, and I felt my emotions. And I happened to be in the little group with Sunny, and she's a much faster walker than I am. So I knew something was coming up, and because she kept asking, how's everyone doing? How's everyone doing? And she kept looking at me, and I'm like, oh my God, it's awful. Finally, I was like, can you just walk with me for a few minutes? And I had this, I don't know, it was just this release of energy. And one of the old stories that I still carried was like, I can't do this. I'm like, I can't believe I walked 15 miles and now you want me to walk 18 miles today. Like, I can't do it. And she's like, what are you talking about? You're already doing it. Like, you've already walked 3 miles. Like, what are you talking about? She goes, tell me something that you can't do in your life that you've wanted to do. And there was nothing on the list. Because there's nothing I haven't done that I couldn't do. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, that was good. I was like, there's nothing on that list. Like, there's still things I want to do,
Right.
but there's never been anything that I haven't figured out that I can't do.
Wow.
And that was like something shifted. And I remember we stopped and we had lunch, and I had a Coke and we used the restroom, and the rest of the time was just magic after we met a witch in the woods. We met all these amazing people, this group of ladies, and I really bond. Like, it was so amazing. And we walked, I think my numbers were over 100 or 90 some miles, but it was way more than that because we had other things that we were walking. But it was amazing. And the hills on we call it Hell Day, was day 2. Like, I couldn't believe the hill we had to walk up. I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? And then we had fun doing it. So it was such a comparison to how you look at life.
Yeah.
And one of my things that I told myself is, I don't want to do this and be miserable the whole week. And I was miserable the first day. And I was miserable like the first couple miles. And I was like, you know better. This is not what you want. You're going to spend that much money and this much time and this much preparation, and then you're just going to be miserable for a week. I'm like, no, we're not doing that. So I started to take myself back into looking for the magic.
Yeah.
And every single day we had magic.
Yeah.
There was even a dog. This is what killed me. Is like around the corner, this dog came up, and I'm like, oh my God, such a cute dog. What's his name? And I'm not a super dog person. I like dogs, not always the humans that are with the dogs. So the dog came up, and of course his name, Merlin.
Oh my gosh.
Merlin. His name is Merlin.
That's so good.
And I'm like, of course your name is Merlin. And I busted out laughing, and I was like, and there is my magic.
Yeah.
So we saw Merlin in different places up and down, and then at the end we saw him too. So he finished with us.
Wow.
It was super cool because I'm like, of course I got to finish.
Yeah.
And the week before we went, we had one night in New York, and we chose to go to Harry Potter.
Oh, wow.
Because I got to have the magic.
Yeah.
And every time I work on my spirit school, it's Harry Potter stuff. So I had to go buy a wand, of course. So there was just so much interesting things that I never expected. And like, we were walking through fairy forests, and there was one point this little girl put her hand on a tree, and she looked at me and she goes, do you think these trees have spirits? And I said, look at the tree. And literally the tree had like eyes and a smile on it.
Wow.
And she was like, oh my God, I didn't even see that. And I'm like, of course the trees have spirits. Like that's why we're here. And it was the
Mm,
most sacred land I've ever been on.
mm,
But the funniest story with the church, the cathedral. So the cathedral is humongous. It's humongous. And you're kind of go into the square, and then the cathedral is the ending point, which I did not think much about it because our biggest takeaway was it was the journey.
yeah.
That was so much more fun. Like the cathedral is a big deal for some of the people. And I didn't even think about it till we got to it. I'm like, oh, it's, it's beautiful. And the next day we stayed in a monastery, which was hilarious. And all these nuns were doing their chores, and I had been sick. And so I stayed back a day and I didn't go to Finisterre, and I was doing my laundry and I felt good because I was doing my chores, and the nuns were doing their chores. So, and it was the most peaceful place. And my spirit said, go to the church or to the cathedral. And I was like, oh, I don't want to walk another mile. Like, ugh. And my spirit was like, go,
Mm.
you need to go. And I was like, all right, got my stuff on, went to the cathedral. You have to stand in line to see if you can get in. And it's about a mile long. So I'm standing in line, and these girls behind me they're like, oh, we have bad luck. And I'm like, well, then you can't stand here because I've had good luck all week. Like, no, you either jump on my good luck or get out of line. And they're like, oh, well, we'll come on your good luck then. And we played with that and stuff, and got into the church. And you're not supposed to take pictures, and I'm taking pictures all over, and the security guard is like, stop taking pictures, stop taking pictures. And she's yelling at me in Spanish, and finally she like stomps her foot at me, and she's like, come on. I'm like, okay, okay. And I put my phone away, and I took it out again because like it was just so beautiful. And so it's in a cross, and I started over on the right side, and I just was antsy the whole time, and I was coming around, and I kept getting up, and then I'd sit down, and I'm like, oh no, like this is an actual service, like this is mass. And they do pilgrims mass, but I
Mm,
just wasn't paying attention. I thought we just get to go through the church. So
mm,
everyone's sitting down, and I keep moving, and I'm
mm.
like, oh, Jody. And it's not in English, it's in like three different languages, not English. And I'm still guided to keep moving. So I went around this way and I ran around this way. And then I knew I needed to get over there, but that officer chick was here. And I was like, gotta move, lady. And I was like, Spirit, you gotta move her because I know I'm supposed to go over there. And in my head, I was kind of thinking, kind of done. It's a long mass, and they were gonna do communion. And I'm like, oh my God, there's like 1,000 people here. It's gonna take forever. And I wasn't feeling good. And I had my purse on, and I got around the corner. I ran so that lady didn't see me. And I was gonna kind of make my way to the doors. And in my head, I was thinking, I wonder if they lock us in here because they can't have the doors opening and
Yeah,
closing. They have to have some kind of
right,
containment.
right.
And I was like, oh, I don't want to interrupt people, but I think I'll go try if the doors will open and just sneak out. My entire purse flew out onto the floor.
Oh
And I've
no.
used that purse for 3 weeks, never opened, never had issues. My passport, my wallet, my euros. I had 30 postcards for people to
Oh
send back
no.
home everywhere. And I just stood there, and I was like, in the middle of mass, I'm like, oh no, what do I do? And this guy looks at me, and he's like, really? I'm like, I don't know what to do. And I had a can of Coke in there, and it's like rolling
Oh
across
no.
the floor. And I'm like, oh my God, Jody, really? So this guy gets on his hands and knees. He's helping me get everything stuffed in my purse as fast as we can. He stands up and starts singing so beautifully.
Oh,
Like the guy up on the podium that's singing, like he's matching his,
mm.
oh my God, I was like, wow. And then my spirit is like, go stand over there. Like it was like, oh my God, go stand over there. So
Wow.
this guy was standing there. So I go up, I'm standing there. And one of the things that they do, I don't know the correct, it's like a Buddha Famario, but it's the incense thing that
Mm.
they will swing and they light and stuff. But the one there is as big as my she shed. Like
Wow.
it's humongous, and they don't do it very often.
Mm.
But years ago, I was like, oh, I want to see that in person. But I had heard over the last few years, they just don't do it very often, or you have to pay $500 for a big group to do it. And so I wasn't really expecting it. So I'm standing there watching, and all of a sudden these 5 guys are over there getting ready with the ropes. And I'm like,
Wow.
oh, holy shit, they're gonna do the thing. And normally Nikki would be standing next to me and I'd hit her and be like, oh my God, they're gonna do the thing. And I'm like, don't hit the guy next to you,
Yeah.
Jodie. You know, like I had to hold my arms and like, don't hit him. I'm like, oh my God, they're gonna do the thing. They're gonna do the thing. And then they lit it, and like 800 phones went in the air, you know, so we could record it. And it
Yeah.
is on my Facebook page. And they start to swing it. It was the coolest because it's a blessing for the pilgrims, and it's a clearing of the pilgrims,
Mhm.
because you're supposed to be kind of walking and letting go of all of your discretions and like all the stuff. And so this is like one of the final steps of your
Mhm.
pilgrimage,
Wow.
if guided to it.
Wow.
And so like my whole, I was like, oh my God, this is the coolest thing, you know. And I got a great video and tons of pictures of it. And the rest of our group had gone to Finisterre, so I was the only one that got to
Mm.
see it. And oh, it's just like, I was like, now I feel complete with my Camino. Like, that is what I needed. And it was so cool. It was so cool. And then the doors opened and I could get out. But seriously, to have my purse open up like that, I'm like, oh, that was totally a spirit. Like, that was completely spirit led. Like,
Wow.
my entire purse looked like it just went whoop, it just all dumped out everywhere, all over the church. So
Wow.
that was super like cool magic at the end. It was really cool.
So all of this is just so magical, to use
Yeah.
your term, in our lives who are not going to Spain and doing the Camino and have things like that happen. My purse dumped out in the middle of,
Yeah.
I think a lot of us would feel really frustrated by that and upset by that. Does spirit upset us in order to get us to wake up? Or how
That's
does
a
spirit work?
great question. I, how do I want to answer that? Because part of me wants to say yes, because if you keep asking for change
Mm,
and you don't hear the hints will get bigger.
mhm.
Put it that way. I don't think spirit punishes us. I want to be very clear on that piece. But I do think spirit gets louder and
Mm,
louder. And I think our bodies play a part in that. Like one of the things that comes to mind is a story with my dad. He never asked for help. He doesn't want help. He's too prideful for help. No help, no help, no help. And he had a pacemaker put in, so he needed rides, or he couldn't drive, which is like awful for my dad. And I remember I had taken to the bank one day and he just kept apologizing. And I'm like, Dad, it's 10 minutes from my house. I don't care. I said, you know, if you would just let people help you, maybe you wouldn't have to be knocked on your ass so much so that we're forced to help you.
mm.
And it just fell out of my face. And he just sat there and he goes, yeah, I think you're right on that one.
Wow.
So I do think that our our body, minds, and spirit work together to get our attention,
Hmm.
because our bodies will scream at us,
Hmm.
and most of us don't listen to our bodies.
Hmm.
Like on the Camino, that was one thing that I was very aware of. I was a slow walker. I was one of the slowest. And I was so grateful at the end because I didn't miss things. I was very
Yeah.
present. I was present. And one of the things that I didn't want blisters, because I knew if I got blisters, that'd be a
Yeah.
problem for me.
Yeah.
And so if I felt any teeny tiny little hot spot, I stopped and I took care of it, and I drank my water and I ate protein and I did all my stuff. But I think listening to our bodies is a piece a lot of people miss. That's why they get so sick.
Yeah, I
You know,
agree.
so I think spirit tries to get our attention, and then I think our bodies get our
Mm.
attention, or our mental health gets our attention. It's not to punish us, it's to help us expand and grow. And some of us fight that.
Yeah, sure.
That's
So
a
true.
great question, though.
So, what you do so many things now. I'm looking at your
I
website.
do.
Clearings, phone readings, spiritual mentoring, events,
Yep.
um,
Spirit school.
spirit school. Yeah, you worked into this because you didn't
Mhm.
start with all of these things. You said it was baby steps. I don't know if you said it
Yeah.
that way, but how many years has it been now that you've been doing this full time?
15.
Really?
I think it's 15 now, because Keaton's 18.
Oh my.
And I started, I would say professionally, maybe 12. but
Wow.
I definitely have been doing it at least 15 years.
Okay. My time flies. Okay, because Keaton was not even born when we first started talking about this. So you're right.
Right. Right. Yep.
So working into this and the things that people could do, by the way, again, go to jodieharvala.com and you can see all the options.
Mhm.
Readings, if people have
For
never had a
sure,
reading.
a lot of people start with 30-minute readings or 60-minute readings. If you're a talker, do the 60 minutes.
Yeah.
One of the big things that I'm focusing on this fall is my spirit school. And so that's an online community that Rika actually sat with coffee with me one day, and I was talking about what I need and what I wish I would have had. And she's like, I think you need a spirit school. And I'm like, I think you're right. So I can thank Rika for that. But it's a community, but every single month I do readings in it. I teach about intuition. We have a master class. We have Monday morning meditations. Like we have a whole thing that we do each month to help people develop over time.
Okay.
And so it is a monthly subscription, but the doors are opening this fall for new signups for that. And I usually open it up and do the welcome on Halloween because that's fun too.
Yeah.
So I'll be doing that. I'm going to be doing lives every day of October. We're calling it Tricks and Treats, where I'm going to be doing little snippets of different things that I've learned over time with tools or meditation or all the spiritual stuff through the whole month of October.
Okay.
So if people kind of want to try this stuff on or learn a little bit more, that's on Facebook. It's free. So just
Okay.
friend me or be on my business page. But
Okay.
Spirit School is a big piece for me right now because it gives me a community and it gives us time together, and it gives people that maybe don't have that kind of spiritual community outside of their world. It gives them a place to safely come in and develop.
Sure.
Because safety is a big piece for me, and it's a big piece for my clients. But space clearings, if you have, illness, or your house just feels dull, or
A big
there's
pile of
going
laundry.
on, or a big pile of laundry, or you can never get caught up. Like there's lots of ways to clear your house. It's not just because your house is haunted. Very seldom is your house haunted.
Mhm.
Usually it's your loved ones trying to get a hold of you.
Yeah.
But clearing your house can be life changing, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And then I do fall retreats and Sedona trips and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I've really grown it over the years. Now that I'm like looking at you, I'm like, God, I have come a long way, Jodie. I remember the couch.
The red
So,
couch at
yep,
Babs.
I
Yes. Oh
remember
my
the red
goodness.
couch.
It's so fun to just have an opportunity to look back. And I would encourage everybody who's listening to this to do this every now and then. Just to
Yeah.
go, come on. Don't turn around, but turn your head around.
Yeah,
Look
at
at what
least
you do.
honor it.
Yeah.
Honor
How
it.
how far have I
Like
come?
back then, if you would have said, "Oh, hey, you're going to go to Spain in 20 years," I'd be like, "Yeah, no, I'm not. I'm going to the lake, or
Hmm.
I'm going to maybe to Bismarck or
Hmm.
Minneapolis." That's
Hmm.
as far as I ever went.
Yeah,
So,
and you've been to Montana, you've been to Sedona a lot. You take
yeah.
tours to Sedona, right?
I take people to Sedona, which I love doing. But I've also the last couple of years have brought in solo trips for myself.
Mm.
And I really wanted to be comfortable traveling on my own. So last year I took almost a 3-week trip to Montana. And I
Hmm.
went to Glacier, and I went to Jackson, and I went to Yellowstone. And I wish I could send every woman on a trip like that.
Yeah.
Every single woman should get 3 weeks to themselves to think about life. Because I was turning 50.
Okay.
I was turning 50, and there was questions that came up for myself, like, what are you not willing to give up, or what do you want more of?
Mm.
And I was like, ooh, what have I given up? Because when you're a mom, you kind
Mhm.
of put a lot of things on the back burner. And I was like, yeah, I'm not really willing to give up Eli. Like,
Yeah.
or our relationship, or like the fun of it and the flirting and like the sex and all that. I was like, I'm not willing to. I'm just because I'm 50, like I finally have my house back, and the kids are off doing their own thing. So
Yeah.
I was like, that's really interesting information. Like it
That's
was shocking how some of the stuff came. So we've really learned how to play this year too, and travel and do all the kind of stuff. So yeah, it's been
great.
quite the roller coaster fun.
So this is available to anybody, not only through Jody, because if you hear
For
something you
sure.
like, please contact her, but just hear what Jody's told us all, me too, that spirit is there, knocking on your door, knocking
Yep.
on your head, knocking on your
Yep.
heart, wanting you to open up and just pay attention, maybe
Yep.
notice things that
I
are
I
nagging.
also think it would be be okay with wanting things.
Mm.
What do you want? Put your order in. You know, I did a little mini class the other week, and I hear so many people like we're not taught to want. And I'm like, I want a lot of stuff.
Mm.
Like I
Yeah.
want a lot. I want to go different places. I want
Mm.
this and I want that and I want this and I want to feel this. So I think people don't put their wants out there.
Mm.
But I think you need to put your order in, or it's kind of like going through McDonald's and they're just throwing food at you and you're like, I don't even like fish
Not what
sandwiches.
I like. That's
Yeah, I
so
didn't want that, but then you
that's
don't. I ask people, have you told spirit what you want? And they're like, well, no.
yeah,
Claim it. Claim
right.
what you want. It might take 20 years to get it
Yeah.
for some of
But
the stuff.
it might
For
not.
some of it, it might not.
Yeah.
So
It's so
I think
good.
a big piece is people don't talk about what they want. They talk
Yeah.
about what they don't have.
Oh, so good. So good. So Jody, the best way to get a hold of you is just on your website or
Go
what?
through my website or
Okay.
my email. So my website is jodieharvala.com, Jodie.
Yes, not quite like mine.
I met a Jody that is IE last weekend. And I
Ah,
don't know that I've ever met another IE Jody. So it was fun. But yeah, it's JodieHarvala.com, or my email is just jody@jodieharvala.com.
okay.
So either one of those, me or my team members can help you out. We have our online schedule if you want to get a reading or house clearing. That's all on my
Yep.
website. Join me on Facebook for the daily tricks and treats, and of course check out Spirit School too, because doors are open by the time this goes.
Yeah.
The doors will be open.
This will be live on what day? October 3rd.
Yep,
So
and we're
today is
opening
October 3rd.
doors.
This
Yeah,
agent. So
new moon. It's a new moon
new
today.
moon. So
So
you
on
just
new moons, you
yeah,
want
go.
to bring in, like, you got to tell the universe what it is you want to bring in. Full moons, what do you want to let go of? And I do a full moon clearing every month for people, but a new moon, what do you want to bring in? We work on that in Spirit School, actually.
Oh,
Because
so
people
good.
don't do it.
So good. So there's an email list you can get on here.
Yes.
There are lots. Boy, there's lots. There's a shop with oracle decks, books, energy clearing tools, the naughty spirit cards.
Naughty spirit cards are the best.
Ooh, you got to ask Jody about that. I'm not going to have you give that away here. It's
Yeah.
very fun.
Yeah, I'll bring that up in October.
There you go. My friend, it has been a joy as always.
Thank you for having me, as always. I love our
Yes.
conversations.
I do too. We got to do it in person. We live in the same town. There's no
I
reason we
know.
shouldn't just get together.
Especially on your pretty deck.
You're in your she shed right now, I think, right? And
I am.
I've been to your she shed. It's so much fun over there. So we will do that.
Yeah.
If you're not in Fargo, don't worry. Jody's accessible and energy is non-geographic. So it's
Yeah, I can do I've done remote clearings all over the world now, so which is super fun to say. But yeah, I can do energy work all over the place.
awesome. So
I'm
please
good at it. It
please
works.
right at it. She owns her gifts.
Yeah, damn right.
Yeah, that's right. So thanks everybody for being with me today. And as always, just go get real. Okay. Just see what that feels like to you to be real. Radical, energized, authentic, and learning focused in all aspects of your life, because that's what we do here on the Circle Up and Get Real podcast.
Yeah, love it.
Thanks, Joe.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.